Hello to my very extensive 4 subscriber strong audience. I hope all 4 of you are having a wonderful day. Today we're going to be learning about what is XML and how to use it thanks to this lovely and interactive tutorial I've put together for you. One thing you'll see throughout the video are polls with questions pertaining to the topic we just learned. You can go vote in them and check your answer in the description, or you can ignore them altogether and focus on the video. Additionally, if maybe you want to test your skills as you learn them, there will be an online compiler linked, as well as a reference photo of the menu I was using, so you can go in and try to make your very own valid XML document in step with me, or you can use your powers for evil and copy my code to see if I've made any mistakes. Finally, there's a link to a Kahoot in the description with ideas pulled straight from this video, so you can see how well you know your XML. Alright, let's get into it. Now, I mentioned earlier that XML is very similar to a programming language called HTML. And if you're not familiar with programming, that's completely fine. HTML is just the base language used for creating websites. So where XML and HTML are similar is that they both use tags. Now, in HTML, use very specific tags, so something like script, H1, body, things like that. These are predetermined keywords that the computer will recognize to organize your HTML document a certain way. So let's say you use the tag H1. You'll put it in an opening tag, and then that tells the computer that any text coming after this H1 tag will have a certain formatting to it. So it'll make it really big and bold and taking up a large portion of the web page. So while XML does use these tags to organize itself, there's a difference here in that XML, you can create your own custom tags. So you don't need to have any prior knowledge of any type of programming language or keywords, because it's simply just a way to organize your specific product or your specific idea that you have, which is really, really cool, and it allows for just about anyone to be using it. So let's take a look at our sample here. So to begin with, something that I think is very important to go over first is XML syntax, because this will let you know what you can and can't do within an XML document. So the first thing I want to go over is what I've been alluding to in my entire introduction, and that's tags, the absolute meat and potatoes of every single XML document you're ever going to come across. So every single XML document needs a root tag, and in our sample here, this is going to be our menu tag. It's just the very first tag of your document, and it's what everything is going to be contained in. So if you like to think about it in something not so technical as coding, it's pretty much just your general concept, your general idea of what you're trying to do here. So since our sample is based off of a restaurant's menu, I chose to call my root tag menu. So it just lets the reader, whoever's going to be reading my XML document, know that everything contained and everything following my menu tag is going to be contained in a menu, obviously. The second good thing to know about XML syntax is that XML documents are comprised of elements. An element is like everything you'll see in the document, so it includes the root tag, the starting tag, and the closing tag, and I'll go over those next, but I just wanted to let you know that an element is pretty much anything that can be referred to in an XML document. And as we go on through the tutorial, this will become more clear. So to get started on writing your code, you're going to want to open up your first element, and to do that, you're going to need a starting tag. And a starting tag is you have an opening bracket and a closing bracket, and you'll put whatever term you want to use to specify that specific element in between. So if you look into the sample right here, we'll go to app 1. This is an example of a starting tag. It just has the opening bracket, the closing bracket, and my term in between. Now you'll see when I clicked on it, it'll link and highlight something called app 1, but with a forward-facing slash. And this is app 1's closing tag, and it is specified by that forward-facing slash. And this will let the computer know that, hey, this element is done, everything contained in between has everything to do with it, and everything coming after it is a new element. Do not conflate the two. We'll get into most of the XML rules very shortly, but just for right now, it's very important to note that these tags cannot start with a number or they can't start with a special character or like a grammatical character like an ampersand or a colon. And I'll get into this later. So looking at this same element, you'll notice that I have some more starting and closing tags contained within it, and these are called child elements. And something really cool about child elements is that it can help you specify further your general kind of like first element. If you want to think about it in something not so specific as coding, you can think about your parent element is what they're called. So app1 would be a parent element as nouns. So something as like bridge, okay? And then your child elements are like the adjectives associated with it. So big bridge, long bridge, cobblestone bridge. It'll just let you get more and more specific into categorizing your specific element. So you'll see I have name, price, and description, and if you reference the photo that we're using, these are directly just the specifications that are found on the menu as well. One final thing I want to note on just the general syntax of XML is something called an attribute. And an attribute is just a way to identify a very specific element or item you might have. So if we look to the menu, you'll see that right next to deep fried pickles, there's this button looking thing and it has new written. And I figured this would be important to include in the XML document because it is found on our source, which is our menu. So to specify that the deep fried pickles are new and are a little bit different from the other appetizers you'll find, you'll want to use an attribute. So once again, like tags and everything in XML, you can call it whatever you want. I just decided to call it type. And the way to specify that you're using an attribute is you're going to want to put your attribute name that you've chosen, an equal sign, and then either a double quotation or a single quotation. And that's what you'll call it. So you'll see that I have type equals new. And I called it new because that is just what's found on the menu. So one last thing I want to go over before I release you all into the world with your newfound XML expertise is just some key rules to keep in mind while you are creating your documents. Rule number 1 is that every single tag you open must be closed at some point. You cannot have floating incomplete elements in your XML document because when you go to validate your document, you will get an error code and it immediately makes the document invalid and not universally acceptable across different computers. Rule number 2 is that everything in XML is case sensitive, so whatever you call it, something, in your starting tag, it must have the same spelling, the same uppercase and same lowercase as the start tag. This is different from HTML because HTML will kind of fill in the blanks and get what you're saying, but XML is very specific and this is something you must keep in mind. Thirdly is everything in XML has to be properly nested, so that means the order in which you opened elements, they must be closed in the same order. So let's say you open an element and then you also want to make the text bolded in it, and that would be using the B starting tag. The B closing tag has to come up first and then the closing tag for your element. The order cannot be reversed because, like I said, XML is a lot more hard-headed than HTML, and we want our documents to be valid and universally accepted. That's the whole point of XML. The last XML rule I want to go over is just about the special characters. So this is like exclamation points and ampersands and less than and greater than signs. And this is how you integrate them into your text. You can't put them in just their own like keyboard character themselves. As I mentioned before, you have to use like this code word for it. And I'll put the table up here so you can know just the general like syntax of it, but this is just what you'll be using in your text elements if you ever want to do and use an ampersand within an XML document.
I was looking at you and you was looking at me and we was thinking, go to market, go to market, go to market, go to market, go, go.